This episode was sponsored by Property, the leading real estate agent for all real estate transactions with a comprehensive ecosystem. They combine highly trained experts with the latest technologies on an intelligent platform to provide clients, brokers, and service partners with risk-free, flexible, and simplified services. Learn more at property.com. That's property with an I.com.
We targeted what we felt was industries that were part of people's life cycle. So everybody needs a home, everybody needs a job, everybody needs a car to get by. And we were going after these kind of basic needs that just kind of made all of our users find a lot of value within the website.
Welcome to the Swisspreneur Show, a podcast about startup stories and learnings from experienced entrepreneurs. If you enjoy listening to our show, make sure to follow the podcast and leave a rating. And now, here's your host, Sylvan.
Wendy, very well welcome to the Swisspreneur Show. It's a pleasure to have you as a guest today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
You are the co-founder and former COO at Encuentra24, the leading marketplace and fully integrated business solution in Central America. That's a very fascinating story already to start with the pitch. You are originally from Panama, and that's also where you did your university studies. You started out working as a graphic designer during the turn of the millennia, but then you got a job as a portfolio manager. So I wonder what motivated that shift into the finance world.
Well, already as a graphic designer, I was building the corporate manual, the designing the structure of many companies, but from a very limited point of view. As a portfolio manager, I was able to really dig in to some of the investments document and understand the voice of the companies, what was their motivation, and what was their goal. So it feels like a very different leap.
Absolutely.
But it just made working much more interesting.
Wow. And was that then also sort of the start for you to say, hey, eventually I even want to become an entrepreneur myself? Or where does that drive to start your own thing come from?
Definitely. As a portfolio manager, I was able to dig into many companies and understand how they started and gain that confidence already as a designer to understand I can build this, I can do also something like this with the expertise and with the capacities that I have.
Wow. Did you also have any entrepreneurs in your family who inspired you to become one yourself one day?
Definitely. Most of my family members are entrepreneurs at a smaller scale, either watchmakers or mechanics or TV repairmen. Like, for example, my dad, he's a barber. And for his entirety of his life, he has been just really focused on building his company and moving it forward. So for me, entrepreneurship wasn't really this risky adventure. It was just the next path.
Just a logical step.
Yes,
it runs in your DNA.
Exactly.
So in 2005, you and your husband, you got thinking, how come that there's no classified advertisements website in Panama? So there was a gap that you identified. You then decided to just build it yourself. Walk us back to that thinking, to that realization of, hey, there's a gap. Let's just do it ourselves.
Well, we were trying to find a home for ourselves, and also we wanted to do a business. He was also an entrepreneur, and he was actually from Bern, and he wanted to create something in Panama. And while he was searching for properties for our home, we didn't find a database that had properties that were at our economical level, which was not that high.
Yeah.
And we wanted to find a way to have like the entire database of properties available in one site. And we couldn't. And we actually wanted to see photos of inside of the properties. And this is 19 years ago. Yeah. This was nothing like this was available. And he said, well, why? We need to start creating this database so we can pick the best property.
Before someone else does.
Exactly. We ended up not immediately finding a property, but we started creating the largest database in the country.
Wow, I love that because you started with your own problem. That's
Yes.
often what we hear from other entrepreneurs on the podcast. One of, if not the best starting point.
Yes, it is. It was a solution to us wanting to live together, to wanting to build something together, and giving an opportunity to other people that had all types of property for sale to put them on one platform.
And of course, I also have to ask, starting a business with your husband, some people say it's the best thing they ever did. Others said, no, I would never do that. How was that for you? Did you even have a discussion about that? Or was it very clear, yeah, we're going to do this. It's the best way to actually start a company.
I find it really great. For me, it was perfect. It was something that I had always dreamed of, to start something with your partner, with somebody who's in your life all the time, all day, and to create something wonderful. So yeah, definitely, I would recommend it. I think it cements quite a lot of relationship, and you can build great things.
Absolutely. And you mentioned you had to build this database, right, of houses where you start or apartments.
Yeah.
And how do you get the first people on the website? Because you have this chicken and egg problem to solve. You have great listings that you want to have there and publish there, but you also need users to give value to these listings. So where did you start? How do you solve the chicken and egg problem?
We started going after companies that had already their websites, their personal websites, or at least their corporate websites with a lot of listings in it. So we targeted them before the launch, and I explained to them what we were doing. We went personally to their offices, sometimes to their homes, and kind of try to convince them to come and put their ads on our website. But after the launch, the only way to do it was advertising. We had to do a lot of offline advertising. Back then, radio worked very well.
Wow.
In Panama, there's a lot of traffic and people a very long time in their cars. So there's a huge culture of listening to the radio. So we advertised on radio. And for the B2B customers, it was one by one, convincing them to please trust us with their listings.
Talking about things that don't scale, right?
Yeah.
To go visit them all one by one.
Yes, we try to start with the bigger ones, of course.
Sure.
Obviously, we try to sync their databases with ours, but it was sometimes just much easier to hire like 10 people, 10 students, and just have them post the ads one by one on the platform.
I mean, yeah, you had to get the job done in that sense.
Mostly friends and family, but yes.
Of course, of course. And in that sense, how did you then, really make sure that they also got value out of the platform? Because you started, but then you still needed to make transactions happen. Did they just happen naturally because you onboarded the right people?
It happened because we try to have a very varied group of listings on the website. Also, we targeted what we felt was industries that were part of people's life cycle. So everybody needs a home, everybody needs a job, everybody needs a car to get by. Yeah. And we were going after these kind of basic needs that just kind of made all of our users find a lot of value within the website.
And the starting point was you started with the listings and that then helped you attract users.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. After the advertising kind of got more of the buyers. It was an interesting moment in Panama. In 2005, the government started announcing further that there were incentives for a lot of foreigners to come into the country and purchase property. Yeah. So our platform was very punctually available, and it was in Spanish and in English. It had this capacity to reach people in North America, in Asia, in Russia, in Europe. And some of our users were experiencing international buyers interested in their properties, and they thought, well, this is crazy. and some of them were flying into the country, seeing all of these very interesting priced properties. Wow. and going after them. So it was very punctual that we had this platform available at this correct time.
So talking about the right timing, right? How much of that was just sort of the coincidence that you had your own need around that time, and how much do you really say, hey, this was also a strategic decision? This made sense to build in that very exact moment.
It all lined up, really. It was just a really coincidence that we decided to invest into this. And it wasn't only about Panama. For the company, we had it in 8 countries at the beginning. So we like Costa Rica, we like Nicaragua. So we had listings there, and we traveled to these countries, not only for tourism, but also to promote the platform. So it just kind of works out.
the stars aligned in that sense.
Yes, they did.
And the initial investment, you had to invest quite a bit of money, I assume, to make the advertising, to build the platform, all of that. How do you finance the operations? Because I assume in the early days, you probably spent way more money than you made in revenue.
In the early years.
Yeah.
We invested or reinvested all of our funds. We had no desire, no ambition to make money at the end of the year. If our bank account had money, I would go crazy spending it. Either buying a computer and hiring somebody else or investing into more advertising. We didn't have investors. It was only the two of us. So the concept of bankrupt wasn't really there. So any money that came in, it was directly invested into advertising, into in expanding our team, into better servers, a secure platform, and anything we needed to just grow.
I love that spirit. That's the real entrepreneurial spirit. The money has to be invested. It has to be working, right?
Yeah.
At the same time, when you have that money coming in or money sitting around on the bank account, where do you invest it in? Like sometimes it's difficult for entrepreneurs to understand if I could advertise it here or I could advertise it there, but one can work and one cannot work. How do you make these decisions to ensure that you're not wasting money in that sense?
Well, that's the great thing about having a small company. And I'm a marketing expert. So for me, trial and error, making polls was fundamental. I continuously ask already in the early days, how did you hear from us? Already personal.
Nice.
Or I invested small amounts on everything from in Panama, taxis are in the back of the shield. You can have advertising or the back of buses. Or I would invest a little bit there and a little bit here and see what worked. And if it worked enough, then I would invest a little bit more. And also understanding what time of the year certain media worked. So being in a small company, being able to target exactly where your money can go is great. When it gets very big, then it's kind of tricky.
Of course.
Yes.
But I love that spirit, trial and error, and just asking people where they heard about you.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah, people are honest about it. They'll think back and
And it also sounds to me like you don't have to over-engineer like a tracking code or whatsoever. If you can, probably a good idea, but just this simple question is probably already very insightful.
Yes, we had customers coming into the office sometimes to make payments or to understand how to use the platform. So when they were being very sincere, I would ask them, like, how did you hear from it? Or where did you see it? Or what was the first thing that came to mind?
Amazing. And you said you were bootstrapped, so you put all your own money into the company. How long did that keep you going? Because I imagine at a certain point, you also hit a ceiling where you said, hey, now if you had more money available, we could grow even faster.
That actually didn't happen for us.
Okay.
For 10 years, we were bootstrapped. We were very careful with our funds. I was very nervous about sometimes hiring a team because I thought this is going to cost me more. I'm going to have to pay for this person's, salary and have an office for them. This is pre-pandemic and pre-home office. But I noticed that people have a genuine desire to help a business and they pay for themselves and they want to see the company grow. So although our growth was very slow because it took 17, 18 years, we were very careful not to overinvest in a way that we could jeopardize our growth.
This episode was co-produced with EO Zurich, a branch of the Entrepreneurs Organization. EO is the world's only peer-to-peer network exclusively for entrepreneurs. It helps transform the lives of those who transform the world. On May 6, 2025, at Europaallee in Zurich, EO Zurich will be hosting the Entrepreneurs Summit, an event by entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs, focusing on the topic of loneliness in the startup world. Expect high-caliber keynotes and open discussions about the difficult personal situations of some of Switzerland's most successful entrepreneurs. There are 150 seats available, and the event is open to both EO members and to outsiders who fit the EO criteria. Head on over to entrepreneurs-summit.ch to learn more. How many people were you at the peak? How many employees did
70.
you have? Well, that's a
Very
pretty
lean.
big number. Yeah, but still pretty, a lot of people working for you.
Yes, it was. And they were spread across 5 countries. Yes, we had people in the largest team was in Panama, but then we had a medium team in Costa Rica, then Nicaragua, El Salvador, and Guatemala.
How did you make sure that with all these different hubs that you built, that you still could remain the company culture? Were you just traveling there very often to be feet on the ground with the staff?
Yes,
Or?
I would
Okay.
travel there often and stay very long. So for
Yeah.
Costa Rica, I would sometimes stay 2 months in the country.
Yeah.
And Nicaragua also, I would not only stay with the team in the office trying to build it, but also visiting customers, visiting providers, lawyers, and promoting the business.
Wow.
Yeah, definitely. It's the only way to understand really the culture and how you can bring value to them.
Yeah. And then in 2015, it was sort of a pivotal moment, if I understand from the outside. You welcomed Shaun Di Gregorio, I hope I pronounced his name correctly, the founder and CEO of Frontier Digital Ventures, as an investment partner. And this would eventually even lead you to being listed in international stock markets. Like, that's a crazy story. When you think about the humble beginnings of solving your own problem to a public listing. Tell us more about that. What happened there after 2015?
Well, we really wanted to grow and we wanted to go faster. We had many potential investors coming up to us. This is
Of course.
many years ago, coming up to us, impressed at what we were doing down there in Central America. And Shaun Di Gregorio, he was probably one of the best investors to have because he was fundamental in the growth of one of the largest real estate marketplaces in Australia.
Right.
And he's not only an investor, he goes on more of a business angel. He was really helping us, and we welcome every one of his advice to grow the company and to scale it.
Mm-hmm.
And his desire the desire of Frontier is to become the leading operator in marketplaces in emerging markets. So he was very interested in Panama and Colombia and Uruguay and extensions like Philippines, Myanmar, and Pakistan. He's not focused on the same big countries, markets that everybody is. So he actually probably inspired me to become an angel investor at some point because he really believed and visualized and taught us the magnitude of what we were building could reach.
That's insane.
Right?
That's crazy. So how did that then go on? Like, he joined, did he just make a pure investment, or was there sort of an M&A transaction? What was the result of his involvement?
It was more an M&A transaction. It dragged out for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just an injection of huge capital. It was divided into 3 tranches.
Okay.
So for each year, he gave us a few more of the investment. Part of the investment was also shares within his company. So we were also involved in, this is the company that he publicly listed. We were also involved in the growth of the entire marketplace structure.
Makes sense to align the incentives in that sense.
Yes, it was. And yes, he was very much involved, not only him, but he hired team members that came from other huge marketplaces in the world that helped us grow. So we were having weekly to bi-weekly meetings with their teams all the way in Malaysia. And please understand the time difference between either Panama and Malaysia or Switzerland, Panama and Malaysia. But we treasured every insight that was given to us and the opportunity to grow and scale this in Central America, which is quite a challenging market.
I imagine. It sounds again like the perfect partner at the right time, and you seem to be very happy about that partnership that emerged from that. But looking back in 2015, you had this offer, these negotiation talks with him on the table. It's also your baby that you built together with your husband over the past 10 years. What made you say yes to get someone else on board and sell parts of your business?
We started to be very popular in the marketplace market. People started to see what we were doing. Mm-hmm. So we had competitors come in to the country, not only from outside, like huge competitors like Naspers or OLX, but within. Many entrepreneurs were starting other marketplaces. Yep. So we needed to scale. We needed to grow. We needed to cement our brand. And he was the perfect partner to do so.
What was your overall revenue back then in 2015? Do you remember, roughly?
It was probably 4 million per year.
Nice. Perfect. And you mentioned the competitor OLX.
Yes.
And a bit after, in 2020, you actually then bought their Central American branch. So you took them over, not the other way around. How did that make you feel?
Yes, well, we were actually very nervous. In 2013, they came into the market with a desire to compete with us and basically take over the market in Central America. And they installed their office basically on the same street.
Wow.
And they hired this Harvard CEO, and they were just going strong, trying to take us out. So we really needed to double down and really focus on growth. And this is where we said we need help. And not only from an investment, because capital is great, but for me, it was more important to have expertise, to have somebody who had a broader sense of, what we needed to do punctually to grow the brand and to be able to withstand such a huge competitor. But after a few years, we weakened them out, and they decided to change their strategy, which was a great opening for us to then acquire their operations in the countries where we were still in.
That's quite a plot twist.
I know. It is. They started out wanting to almost buy us.
Yeah.
And after many years of conversation, it ended up switching around a little bit. But it worked out great because we were able to welcome one new country, which was Guatemala, and it's the biggest country in Central America and the hugest market. And we didn't have enough funds or desire to go in there and fight with them. So we were able to acquire it and then get the Guatemala market.
That's so fascinating. I wonder, how did you sort of resist that pressure? You see the competitor opening up in the same street. They go all after you. They're this big player. I imagine you must have also been a bit scared as a founder, say, wow, where is this going? This is like tough business now. What made the difference, and how did you as a person, as a founder, keep going?
I basically actively ignored them.
Okay.
We did end up obviously having Shaun come in as a partner and helping us, but I tried to keep my attention on growing our brand and not seeing what they were doing, trying to, compete with them and make up. Just instead of that, I wanted to focus on on our plan to innovate and create our products. And yes, just sort of ignore them, but keep walking forward.
Yeah. So this is, I think, a good strategy. Otherwise, you can go bonkers by just worrying too much about.
Then you want to do everything that they do. You want to call yourself like them. You want to change everything in your website, and you lose your identity and who you are. And you have clients and users and a team that have come on board because of what you have as a company. So it doesn't make sense to just change your personality just because there's a competitor doing something like yours.
Exactly. So you stayed really authentic, really true to yourself. When they entered the market, did you feel that? Like, did your numbers go down? Did you lose customers to them? Or how did you feel it despite ignoring them?
Well, I did feel it because they're very powerful. They're probably the second biggest marketplace in the world. They had capital coming in from Asia. So their capacity to make investments was incredibly hard. They went to the extent of blocking us from having exclusivity in certain advertising media. So or even if I was speaking to an advertising company, then I could no longer work with them because they had an exclusivity contract with them. So I could really feel them. And they had plastered the entire advertising and all over Panama. And these back up the buses, like I told you, they were now their brand. And yes, I could feel it. I could see it. We noticed that our customers were deviating. But what I told them all is try it. Try them and try us and see what works. This is what I do. I advertise in all media, so you should try it. What works for you instead of competing or bringing in the bad,
Yeah. I like that perspective. But still, they basically run down all the user or many of the user acquisition channels for you. But in the end, it seems that even big money did not succeed. It was actually the better product, the better user experience, I assume, that made the difference in the end.
Yes. They went even to the extent of hiring people that were within our company or people that we had fired. Okay. And they thought, okay, I'm getting somebody amazing, but they didn't understand that we had fired them because they weren't working out. But yeah, part of the team people that just didn't work out with us were there, and then that didn't work out either. And eventually, this is a funny story. Eventually, we hired the CEO, this one from Harvard.
Oh, okay.
to come into the business and help us out. And that did not work out.
Yeah, different cultures, I assume.
Different cultures. And he just couldn't bring the value that I thought he could. It was just a really great brand that they had internationally. But we were a stronger brand. And this is when I understood this.
Well, I love that story. And it's also really a good reminder that all the big money and also all the big schools, etc., they don't necessarily make you a good entrepreneur. Maybe sometimes even the opposite.
No, not at all. There's a lot of this ego in it that you're walking around, but you're no longer investing into, like I said, the brand, the people, and making it better. Yeah. You just kind of think that it's going to happen for you because you went to these universities. So I'm working at this brand, and you no longer want to really help to make it an amazing experience for its users and clients.
And there, I'm sure everyone from employees to users to clients, they feel that difference.
Yes. I had employees that were with me for 12 years.
Wow.
They saw the brand go from 2 people to 70.
Yeah. And that says a lot. If people stick around, I always see that as one of the strongest signs that you did at least a few things right.
Yes. At the beginning, they were leaving. Of course, they don't want to be part of a startup that it doesn't give them this financial security. But after a while, they were very passionate and they wanted to stay because they saw that we were also very passionate about what we were doing.
That can really move mountains in that sense.
Yes.
But then in 2022, you decided to leave the company. Why did you decide and conclude that your job was done now?
Well, already many years before, at least 4 years before, we were trying to find a potential CEO. Mm-hmm. My co-founder and I, we wanted to either focus on the tech or the marketing or the product development. And having such a company in so many countries and scaling to that level, we were what felt like going into many other departments and seeing about the finance, the growth, the HR, the investors, the auditing. You didn't feel like if you were really helping to create this amazing product. Mm-hmm. But it was happening, but you just really couldn't see it because you were looking at it from a very external point of view. Right. So this is when we had the opportunity to have an exit. Frontier Digital Ventures, or Shaun Di Gregorio, he offered this to us. Right. And we said yes. And that was the end of it. On the end of 2022, I was able to exit Encuentra 24.
Nice. What did that mean for you personally?
Oh, that was a huge change. That was almost part of my identity.
Of course, yeah.
But I really wanted to see the business grow beyond me. I had this feeling that I was leading the business. I wasn't really allowing the other leadership to impose or to offer their creativity for it to grow. Mm-hmm. Because I was there, because my co-founder was there. We were saying, oh, that doesn't work. Yeah. Oh, we tried that once. Oh, we could try. It was just this environment that I felt maybe if I'm not there on the table, they couldn't put these new ideas and innovate and scale it. And I really wanted it to continue to grow and not be for my ego, just like, I'm going to hold on to it forever. This is mine.
Kudos to that, because many entrepreneurs who build something from scratch, they struggle with exactly that decision to let go when the company sort of outgrows them.
Yeah. And the company was great at building or helping other entrepreneurs scale. So we had a lot of brokerage companies. We had a lot of car resellers and many other entrepreneurs there. And I was able to help them to generate income through my platform, mm-hmm. but nothing beyond that. I wasn't able to really dig deep into how they could grow their business. And this kind of created an itch in me that went from designing their corporate manual to understanding how to invest in them and then to help in them. But yeah, there was something still missing.
Yeah. And what did the exit for you mean personally on a financial level?
It meant that it's possible, that it was a very good decision to do mm-hmm. at the moment that it was done. It was great to have the co-founder and then the investor that I had that really, really helped us. Even if he was on the other side of the table, he really helped us to get this done. And because he completely believed in the brand and in us and our capacity. So yeah, it has really put me in a position to want to get back and also do the same thing for other entrepreneurs.
I love that. And that's exactly what you then did. you actually came to Switzerland. That's what I want to talk about first, because we are now recording this episode here in Switzerland. You live in Bern now. What brought you to Switzerland? I know there's the connection with your husband, but what was the reason that you decided to relocate to Switzerland?
Well, actually, our developers were here in Switzerland. A lot of people usually say, well, why if it's so expensive?
Exactly.
But it was actually very good. It was very, our developer was here in Switzerland, in Solothurn. And we used to work quite closely with him. Also, we had another group of developers for our apps in Spain, and I was working with designers in Poland and in Germany. So being on Swiss time was already easier than to wake up at 5 a.m. to be able to speak to the developers about the platform and some of the products that we're creating for us. But yes, already 12 years ago, I had a home here in Switzerland. So I've been living back and forth between Panama and Switzerland, and traveling to Costa Rica and Nicaragua. And,
the combination of the best.
Yes. Even at least a few trips to Malaysia. Yeah. But yes, then after pandemic, I decided I'm going to stay in Switzerland after the pandemic and after the exit. Panama was my fast-paced, moving environment for work and commerce, and Switzerland used to be my calm place for thinking and for creativity.
I like that because it also reflects your professional shift in that sense of building your own company, the wild times where you just had to get everything done. And nowadays, you are more active as an investor yourself. You started your own fund in that sense. You're active as a business angel investor in SigTick. So how did this angel, aka you, actually get wings?
Well, after a very active lifestyle that I had with Encuentra, which I was almost working all week and traveling back and forth, and with all of the teams in different countries and providers, I really wanted to continue being part of the entrepreneurship world. I love innovation. I love technology. I love seeing a product being created from a necessity, that it could be an individual necessity or just something of the community. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to be involved in that and help them and share my expertise without having to invest so much time as as a founder of a very huge enterprise. Yeah. And I had this opportunity already to invest in a few companies, and this has been terribly rewarding. And
How does your portfolio look like today?
I had to size it down since I had a marketplace that had the capacity to cater for prop tech and auto tech and job tech. My portfolio today is more marketplaces, so impact marketplaces that could be around either health tech or femtech, or yes, just have an impact agenda behind it.
I love that. And how many investments have you made so far?
So far, I made 4.
Great. And I also wonder, part of your expertise, you're also active in the EO organization, the Entrepreneurs Organization here in Zurich, and also the EO Accelerator. How do you help and coach the businesses that go through the EO Accelerator?
I actually joined EO in the Panama chapter. I was part of the Panama chapter for 2 years, and when I decided 100% to live in Switzerland, I transferred to the Zurich chapter. And in the Panama chapter, I was part of also part of the board and part of the program called GSEA, which is the Global Student Entrepreneur Award, which helps students that are in a university and they have their own business, and we help them scale. And in Zurich, after I joined, I had the opportunity to be, again, part of the board, but this time for the Accelerator program, which helps founders who have had their company at a certain scale to take them to that higher level. Yeah. And it's a 2-year program where they can analyze their cash, people, their strategies, and how to execute them. And this has been already great, and this is something that I'll continue to do for a bit more.
I can't imagine anyone better than you having all that experience that we just talked about to pass it on to the next generation of entrepreneurs.
Yes, definitely. And my task within the board is to find more founders and help that have this desire to grow. I never had an accelerator for my business. It's probably why it took so long.
You had to figure out everything on your own.
Everything out. I went to conferences and books, and there's almost no YouTube. And today we almost have a cheat sheet with the accelerators and all these entrepreneurs that can help you scale your business if this is your desire.
I always see that as like you have to go through the learning curve eventually yourself, but having someone with your experience, for example, you can tremendously shorten that learning curve.
Yes.
So you can go through it way faster than doing all the mistakes yourself.
Exactly. Why make mistakes when you can hear from other people's mistakes?
Exactly. There's one other important topic I want to talk to you about, and it's being a female founder yourself. Is gender equity also a subject that you really focus on with your investments, where you say, hey, I want to invest in female founders as well, because there's so little VC money or investment money in general going to female founders. How do you see and address that topic yourself?
Definitely. I almost feel it as my duty.
Yep.
Most female investors will tend to also invest in female founders. And this is something that I do look at when I'm looking at a new company to invest, and they have a very diverse team. It makes it more interesting for me. And more so when it's potentially 10 people in the founding team and there's this lack of balance between what diversity means, then I would probably take a step back.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, Swisspreneur listeners, did you know we have a monthly newsletter? That's right. On the first Friday of every month, we send out a digest with all the newest developments of the Swiss startup scene. From upcoming events to growth hacks and free resources to community stories and recent funding rounds. Click the link in the show notes to subscribe. You won't regret it. And I wonder now, if you look a bit at the success you had and also try to look into the future, are you still in touch with the Encuentra team?
Not in an operating way. There's still little details that it's so funny that they still show up. I think last week they were still asking me about the ownership of the Google store for the apps, or the credit card is still in my name, or little things like that. But no, the only contact that I may have is still with my team. Yeah. They still reach out for birthdays and Christmases, and I still reach out to them.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So you didn't lose, after some 12 years working with each other,
Imagine, yes.
I'm glad that this connection stays.
It did.
And I also wondered today, you are an investor, but these investments usually take a long time to deliver a return, potentially with an exit. What are your income streams today? Do you even need income streams, or how do you do that?
No, I currently do not need.
That's a good position.
I still, like I said, I still have shares in the company that believe in me, and I still believe in what they're doing. I have investments in ETFs, and I'm also investing in some of the startups here. I do wish to continue to invest, and not only from a financial sense, but also help a lot of these companies that I'm investing in with my expertise, like you mentioned, to help them grow and scale and understand how to navigate their growth.
Perfect. Thank you for doing that here in Switzerland. We really appreciate that. So looking into the future, what is next for you, Wendy?
For the near future, we'll continue to try to build and grow the accelerator. Well, not build it, it was already there, but at least to do it for this next EO calendar year, which usually starts in July. Mm-hmm. I'll be also preparing to take a very higher role within EO, assuming the presidency as of next year. Entrepreneur organization, for me, it's part of my DNA. I love what is done there, how we focus, on people, on our family, and these components they need to be very solid for you to have an amazing business. So I believe in quite a lot what we're doing, and yes, continue to find impact startups that I can invest in.
Amazing, and congratulations on this new role starting next year. That's
Thank
really
you so
exciting.
much.
So to wrap up the conversation, we always have two last sections. The first one is about any resources or gadgets that you can recommend. Can be books, can be technological gadgets. What comes to mind when you think about your favorite tools or gadgets?
I really like lists.
Okay.
And
what is that?
Lists, making lists of things. Yes.
A fancy app or something.
No, it's not fancy. I think everybody can make a list, and making short-term goals. I make daily goals, I make weekly goals, and I make monthly goals, even if it's for my personal life. Mm-hmm. I really, I believe in also in dashboards.
Sure, yeah.
Not only as I work out quite a lot, so I try to measure. I'm not competing with anybody else. I'm competing with myself to see how I'm improving, to just have this correct mindset that I am improving, because sometimes you don't feel that you're doing much.
And then you look at the numbers, you're like, oh,
I'm
damn.
doing
Yeah.
I'm doing actually a whole lot better than last year.
Exactly.
So, which is the kind of motivation that you need, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I love that. And for the very last part, we have some rapid fire questions for you. I gave you either a short question or different options to choose from, and you have to answer in one sentence.
Okay.
You ready?
Okay. One sentence or one? Okay, one sentence.
Let's see. Panama or Switzerland?
Switzerland.
Nice. Entrepreneur or investor?
Entrepreneur.
Regret making an investment or regret not making it as an investor?
Regret not making it.
That's better. The other one hurts. What is the biggest investment red flag for you?
Lack of diversity.
Yeah. And Zurich or Bern?
Bern.
That's where home is.
Yes.
Amazing. Wendy, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was a lot of fun. And yeah, thank you so much for doing everything you bring here to the Swiss ecosystem. And I'm sure we're going to see, hear, and read a lot more from you.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure coming over here and having this interview with you. And definitely, I'll be doing a whole lot much more in Switzerland.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, you can support us by rating our show on Apple Podcasts. This way, we can reach an ever-growing number of aspiring entrepreneurs.